Hi guys, welcome to my channel. It's Lisa here. I'm here with a video on my chronic illness. It's kind of a complicated illness, but it's basically an inflammatory arthritis that affects the lower back, but also most joints in the body. I know the joints that it affects for me are my lower back, my spine, my SI joints, which are right in the hip. They connect the hip to the spine. My shoulders, and I know collarbones aren't a joint, but my right collarbone tends to bother me quite a lot. And again, not a joint area, but it's where the ligaments join to the ribs, which is right here in my chest area. This is actually called, the pain that I have here is actually called costochondritis. It's an inflammation just under the breastbone where the ligaments join to the ribs. And that is actually how they found out that I have this other disease, which is called Ankylosing Spondylitis. Don't even try and say it the first time. It took me forever to be able to say it. Now I basically just say AS unless I'm talking to somebody new that doesn't know about the disease, because I do want to spread the word about, ankylosing spondylitis. It was traditionally considered a man's disease. Women were not thought to get it. But we now know that is very untrue. Women absolutely do get ankylosing spondylitis. I'm proof. My father has it. He was diagnosed a few years back, and unfortunately he was diagnosed so late in life that he had to have surgery, and he was already fused. So he had to have back surgery to put rods and screws in his back to straighten him up, because what happens is ankylosing spondylitis is an inflammatory arthritis, and they say it's in the lower back. Well, that is where most of the disease happens, but it can affect other areas. It causes pain in other areas of the body. Excuse me, itchy nose. Must mean I'm gonna kiss a fool. Oh yeah, I live with one, I think. Sorry. That was a bad dig. But anyway, it's an inflammatory autoimmune arthritis. And it's complicated. The inflammatory part is bad, obviously, because that's what causes the pain in the back. And other parts of the body. But the autoimmune part makes it even worse, because your body is fighting against itself. When your back becomes inflamed, the body sees that as a threat, which it is. But what happens is the body starts to create more bone. So in your spine, which is where most of the fusion happens, but not all of it. But in your spine, what happens is the inflammation goes around the spine, and the body creates more bone where the inflammation has been or is, and it fuses the spine. It makes it so it can't bend any longer, or doesn't make it so it can't bend. Well, in some cases it does, but in most cases, it will also cause a person like my father to fuse. And when he fused where his neck and upper back were curved. So they put a rod in his back to straighten him out. Unfortunately, he is starting to get that curvature again. Not as bad as it was, but he's still starting to get that curvature in his spine. So I am hoping that we caught my disease early enough So I can, I'm on medication, or I'm going to be restarting medication again soon. I've been off it for quite some time because my first rheumatologist was an idiot. And this new rheumatologist is absolutely wonderful. And she's putting me back on a medication which is called methotrexate. It's a pill. You take it once a week, and you can take as many as little as 3 up to, I think I was on 8, and I think that was the maximum dose, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So she's starting me back at 3 only because I have an infection in my leg. And that's another thing with this disease, that cellulitis is a common thing with this disease. A thing called, and pardon the way I pronounce this, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but uveitis, which is in the eye. Your eye gets very inflamed and red and hurts. Knock on wood, I have not had that yet, but I do have the cellulitis in my leg, and I've been dealing with that since November, early November. I'm on my 3rd oral antibiotic, and I've had 1 bout of, 1 dose of IV antibiotics in the emergency room when my doctor sent me there. So I'm kind of frustrated with that. It's not going away. I do have an appointment with a second dermatologist because, again, the first one was an idiot. So I do have an appointment with a second dermatologist next week. So I will be very curious to see what she says and if she does a biopsy or not. This first dermatologist that I saw didn't do a biopsy, barely even looked at my leg, and just kind of dismissed me. Didn't ask if I had any questions or anything like that. So I was pretty disappointed in that. But anyway, so that's part of the reason I have been off the methotrexate, is because of the infection in my leg. When you have an infection, you have to come off the medication for the AS, simply because the medication for the AS screws up with your immune system, messes up your immune system, which is already messed up to begin with because you have an autoimmune disease. But, once you get an infection or the flu or anything like that, you have to come off the medication because it just can make it 10 times worse. So the steps to the medication is first you're supposed to start with NSAIDs, like Aleve or Advil or something like that. But I can't take those because I have erosive esophagitis, which comes from GERD or acid reflux. So I can't take NSAIDs because those will cause more acid and cause problems with the esophagus. So the first thing that I started on was the methotrexate with my first rheumatologist. And I did not think it was helping me. I did not notice any difference. But when I went off of it because of the infection in my leg and going on the antibiotics, I did notice an increase in pain when I went off the methotrexate. So I was positive, I was glad that the methotrexate was helping some, because if there's less pain, then hopefully that means there's less inflammation. I'm not sure that was actually true in my case, though, because all my blood tests, the inflammation markers came back higher than they were when I first went to the rheumatologist. So that was a little discouraging, that part of it. But my new rheumatologist just got me approved for Enbrel, which is a biologic injectable medication, and you inject it yourself. It's usually a pen, but they can come in different forms. I haven't gotten mine yet. It comes from a specialty CVS pharmacy. It's mail order. So I have no idea how long it'll be before I end up getting it. But I'm kind of excited to start that, but until my leg is cleared up, I can't. Or until I'm off the antibiotic, I can't. And I'm on this antibiotic for 30 days, which just seems extremely excessive because it's going to mess with my stomach. And I don't know. I just think there's got to be another route. I don't want to be hospitalized because I know that is one possibility, but I just want this infection gone. I want to be able to go to the Y and use the pool. The infection is not contagious to anyone, excuse me, but it could cause problems for me if I go to the Y and go into water that's, not clean enough or whatever. So there's a lot of things that go along with this disease that are, not fun. Not that any disease is fun. It's not. And I'm not trying to be oh, poor me. I'm hopeful that the diet program that I'm on and the weight loss surgery that I'm going to have eventually, and even going to the gym and working out and building up muscle and getting stronger will help my disease, will help me, be able to handle the pain a little bit more. I did just recently get a temporary handicap placard for my car. I do not use it unless I absolutely have to. If there's a space that's just as close or one space over from a handicap spot that's open, I will take that and I will not use a handicap spot. And if I'm feeling good that day, I will not use a handicap spot. I don't want to use it unless I absolutely have to, because I know there are people out there that need it a lot more and need it on a daily basis every day. So I will not use it if I absolutely don't have to. And I also have applied for disability only because the career that I had before I found out about my disease, and I actually went out on a medical leave because of the issues I was having, and I didn't know what they were caused from yet. But the career that I had before I left because of this disease was I was a hospital phlebotomist, and that's a career that is very high-paced and very active. I mean, you have to be on the go, and you have to get yourself into some positions that my back just was not, towards the end, was not allowing me to get into. I was in a lot of pain by the end of my days, and towards the end of my stint there, I was barely able to move at the end of my day. So I did leave. I had to resign because my medical leave was actually ending, and I figured it was better to resign than lose my job, because then that way, if I do, get some relief from medication and I'm able to go back and do, be a hospital phlebotomist, hopefully they'll take me back. I believe I left on good terms. So, yeah, my life has taken quite the turn since this disease took over my body, or since it flared up. I can't really say since it took over my body, because I've had lower back pain since my early 20s at least. And just thought it was because I was overweight, because I have been overweight for the majority of my life. I just accredited it to being overweight and didn't think anything of it, and apparently nobody else did either. I guess there was a blessing when I started having the pain in my chest, and they found out that it was the costochondritis, because it took a while. It took quite a while. In fact, my PCP was wonderful and was actually feeling very bad that he wasn't able to help me. He just wasn't getting answers through anything that he did. He finally sent me to a rheumatologist, but on the last appointment that I had with him for this specific problem, he literally pulled out a $20 bill out of his wallet after he asked me what my copay was and said, I want to pay your copay because I don't feel like I've helped you at all. And I was in tears, and I said, I appreciate that, I do, but that's not necessary. You have helped me. You know, you're doing your best. You're doing everything that you can. You're sending me now to a specialist, and hopefully I will get some answers there. The one good thing that this rheumatologist did for me was diagnose me. But even then, she took x-rays, looked at the x-rays. They were not definitive for AS. And she told my significant other and I, after she did the MRI, when she got those results, they would be definitive one way or another. And at that point, I didn't know what she was thinking she might be dealing with. But I had an idea. I kind of put two and two together, and I kind of figured it out on my own. But she said the MRI would be definitive one way or another, whether I had AS or not. Well, she comes back with, well, the MRI wasn't definitive, but I'm clinically diagnosing you with AS, ankylosing spondylitis. So we kind of both looked at each other like, she said it would be definitive one way or another. I mean, I'm not happy to have the diagnosis. Absolutely not. I think it was one of the worst case scenarios, but I'm happy to have the diagnosis because I'm happy I can move on with treatment and possibly save myself from fusing. But this rheumatologist that I had was not good. The one I have now is much better, even though I've only seen her once. I have been emailing with her back and forth through our portal system, and she gets back to me within an hour or two every time I email her, and I just think it's wonderful. She's a great doctor from what I can tell so far. So the gist of it is I'm hoping that catching this early enough in my life, even though I didn't catch it in my early 20s, which probably would have been ideal, I did catch it in my mid-40s, meaning was diagnosed with it in my mid-40s. So I'm hoping that, being on the medication, and hopefully we can get my CRP and my SID rate, which are the inflammation marker blood tests that they do. Hopefully we can get those two lowered so I'm not as inflamed as I have been, and go from there, and hopefully this will cause me not to fuse, or prevent me from fusing, I guess is the better way to say it. So I guess that's probably about all I have. I'm running up to about 20 minutes now. If you have any questions or any advice for me, please post down below. I would be happy to answer any questions that I have the answers for, and if I can, I'll research it if I don't have the answer. And any advice is welcomed. I don't necessarily want to go down the natural pathway because I don't know that I trust that enough to deal with this disease. I know it's good for some things, but this disease, inflammation, is a big issue. And I have cut sugar completely out of my diet. I eat no sugar except what's in protein bars that I eat, and most of those have 1 gram of sugar or less. So there is no sugar in my diet. And my inflammation, from what I can tell, pain-wise, is still pretty high. I haven't seen the numbers in a little while, so I don't exactly know what they are. But pain-wise, I can tell they're still pretty high. It's just a sense that I have, you know, my pain is pretty high in my back right now. Of course, I shoveled snow yesterday, very heavy 6-inch snow, so that didn't help. But anyway, any questions, please post down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll do some follow-up videos on this specific subject. And subscribe down below. Hit the notification button if you want to be notified as soon as I post another video. And I hope you all have a sparkling weekend. It's Friday, yay. And enjoy your friends and family. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video helps somebody. Thank you.